Dreams Oda.
もうあなたとお話しすることはないと言ったはずですが。
それは知ってます。でももう一度チャンスをください。それにほら、今度はプロも一緒ですから。
プロ？
どういうこと、あかり？
実はさっきダンサー仲間からクリスティーナが蒼天堀に来てるって聞いて、私のダンスを直接見てもらったの。でも踊り終わった後、君には興味がないって言われて。クリスティーナさん、お願いです。もう一度私のダンス見てもらえま
What
せ
if
ん
they
か？
become a team, you know?
私どうしてもクリスティーナさんにダンスの指導をしてもらいたいんです。今度は私の友達で今アイドルとして活躍してるプロの子も一緒なんで、これなら少しは興味を持ってもらえると思うんですけど。
ちょっと、あかり。
はるか、お願い。友達でしょ。私にははるかみたいなルックスも人脈もない。だからこんなチャンス逃したら私。
いいでしょう。どういう経緯かわかりませんが、お二人のダンスを見て差し上げます。
Dance battle. Engage.
本当ですか？
ええ。
ちょっと待ってください。実は私、クリスティーナさんにお仕事のことでお願いしたいことがあってここに。
いいから踊りなさい。話はその後。どちらにしても私は自分の興味あるダンサーと以外関係を持つ気はありません。つまりあなたが私と話をしたければ踊って私の興味を引くしかない。どう？やめて帰る？
いえ、やります。あかりと踊らせてください。
Alright. Dance battle engage. Alright.
私勝ちます。
I still need to figure out how the heck do I do like heat action. Maybe it's LB. Oh, it is LB. Okay, okay. Hey.
どうですか、クリスティーナさん。
あなたとならいいお話ができそうね、はるか。
クリスティーナさん。
どうして？確かにはるかもよく踊れていたけど。
This is a very deep cut, but this is one of those moments that in life you don't find a very rare friend, and if you do find them, that you can share a conflict of interest like career goals and still overcome that. Those are friends for life. But we'll see how this turns out for Akari. But this is like one of the biggest deep cuts. Some like especially when it comes with making friends early in life. When you become like when you get a lot older, people become more multifaceted, so they have many other tethers and ways to connect, not just simply a dream. But early in life, friends like as an older person talking to a younger person, friends are very tenuous and they tend to come and go unless you find that special someone. Because often your life lacks enough experience to overcome conflict of interest, and this is one of the rough ones. That's why when you are young, what you're a lot of times during the young phase, right? You are still in self discovery, and then everyone else around you are in the same self discovery. So they're inwardly focusing. And then when you make friends, then eventually the ones that have the most conflict of interest with your limited experience will drift apart. They will naturally be pragmatically, and one should not be sad in a sense. It's because when it becomes successful, a conflict of interest can't persist in that relationship. But those others that you sampled, they will probably tend to have complementary or even supplementary personalities and career choices. If you're super lucky, you might be able to find someone who overcomes all that. But generally speaking, you hear stories like this at a younger age because of the conflict of interest. And they have a conflict of interest, which is their dream. Yes, it's common for kids to group up together when they have common dreams because they have common struggles and there's empathy. But ultimately, those are not the ones that actually stay with you. It's a lot later when the maturation of a human experience that allows you to tether when you have the same things. That's kind of why it's very difficult to be friends with coworkers later in life, like even as an adult. When you start climbing the same ladder, you have a conflict of interest. So incredible. A lot of times, the more consistent consistent friends tend to be individuals who don't work in the same environment or don't work doing the same things. Because this situation is a true test of the friendship. I mean, you can still test your friendship across these conflict of interests, and if they survive, friends for life. Like there are very few things that are so soul crushing than losing your dream to another person. And you can be born a very benevolent person and say, "I'm happy for you," right? But if you guys are friends already, you would already know that it's a bittersweet moment when your friend gains their dream, but it was your dream too, and you shared that thing, and it causes a gigantic stress. Ultimately, when you get older, though, there are far more things that ground something that doesn't have conflict of interest. And this is a rough one. This is a really rough one when one dream gives away to another person's dream. Although here, Haruka and Akiri only met recently, like really recently. But it's for someone like my age looking at kids being like aspiring to be things and they're like friends and they're both striving to do things. This is an inevitability among most of them, and it's a really tough situation. But I like to think that RGG is going to write that they're going to overcome and they're going to be happy for each other and encourage each other, as opposed to spiraling in what will realistically happen, which is coveting, jealousy, insecurity, along with the whole potential overcoming stuff. But they could possibly drift apart. Realistically, they are likely more to drift apart because of this. If the dream is really, really important to Akari, she would naturally drift apart from Haruka.
私との差がそんなにあったとは思えない。なのにどうして？
言ったはずですよ、あかりさん。私は興味あるダンサーとしか関係を持たないと。
でも
今日は気分がいいので一つだけ教えてあげます。私がはるかの方を選んだ理由を。
何？
ダンスはテクニックじゃない。自らの心をどう表現するか、どう見る側に心を伝えられるか、それにかかっているの。
心？
A little slight deep, a little slight digression of a thought with this. This is also how I find the when Asian cultures take it to the extreme in parents, where they start comparing siblings and relatives to each other. This is like the extreme case. I do ultimately feel that this illustrates one of the very more common Eastern culture cons on the extreme level when you have parents with multiple children and relatives. They use this type of reinforcement in order to create sibling rivalry. And yeah, it's happened. It's a very common theme usually, right? The whole comparison thing. But in Eastern cultures, it's almost a given. Like it's like baked in. But it is observable in other cultures. It's just it's an extreme common way among Asian cultures. And when you see that, you can observe the difference. How, if you take the statistics, right? How often do siblings stay together in Asian households? Like, what I mean is stay together in a wholesome reinforcement way or a more competitive, distant, professional way. If you compare Western culture with Eastern culture, there's a separation. It's more common to find coddling, nurturing, emotional intelligence between siblings in Western culture more often, in my opinion, statistically, from what I gather, than Eastern cultures. Like my sister and I, to compensate for this, we do the Asian thing where we love each other unconditionally, as in, if she's in trouble, I'll help her unconditionally. It doesn't matter if professionally or stuff we disagree with so many things, it's unconditional. However, on the flip side, in Western cultures, the love is conditional. However, the love is conditional and persistent. It's very relevant and it's upfront. So you have Western cultures, which most of my friends belong to Western culture. I have way more friends associated with the Americanized culture, which their brothers spend time together. They need to reinforce a lot of the sibling relationships are built on shared experiences. So they're reinforced to engage in that. Meanwhile, my sister and I and a lot of Asian siblings tend to be really in on their career and establishing their things, and they typically drift apart in the sense of emotional attachment to each other. And that is overlapping in crosstalks with the culture that deals with comparing and constantly riding each other's standards, as opposed to try again, I'm here to support you, you're here to support me. Like, well, a lot of times is if you don't cut it, why can't you be like X, Y, and Z, which is rough. But I mean, I wouldn't be the person I am today without that, right? So it still works, and all these systems that I talked about still exist, and it's mixed in international cultures and multinational cultures. It's tough when it doesn't work, which this is an example of when it doesn't work. She doesn't take it like, I'll try my best and stuff. She begins to question in a jealous way, in a coveted way, which is one of the risks you take with doing it this way.
私は数えきれないほどのオーディションを審査し、数えきれないほどのダンサーを見てきた。でも毎回オーディションに落選するダンサーには
Sibling resentment is a great example. Like, oh, you're the superstar in the family. The family only cares about you. You do everything right, and I'm nothing. And then, the self-deprecation, the one that underperforms, just get isolated. That's a really a far more common occurrence in parental guidance that's used like this technique where you compare people and you compare your children as opposed to the other way. And I got the really nice, exposure to what it's like on the other side of the thing, which you can see the pros and cons of that too. In fact, what's a counterbalance to that? When you have the other style where you don't compare and stuff, ultimately there is less high achieving, and the average performance is raised, but the potential of the two is dwarfed. So it gravitates toward a more consistent outcome in terms of emotional intelligence, self-esteem, and whatnot. It works out better, but the potential is capped. It lowers the potential by raises the downfall. So you have less people who are in the crazy, where like in Akiri's perspective and in Haruka's perspective, because she's like the superstar, right? Everything works out for her. But at the same time, when you have the other trade-off, no one's going to be a superstar like Haruka, but at the same time, it's rarer to find this situation where the one that's being compared is devastated as well. It's an ironic thing because a lot of times when you think of high range potential, you think more Western style, like the capitalist system. Competitive competition breeds excellence, while it also breeds a counter associated failures, right? There are winners and losers. But in this case, these are one of the rare moments where parental guidance and value produce the opposite effect, where the way the Western parenting in general, like the trends are more common, breeds averaging of children progeny performance, while Asians strive for, like the Eastern side strives for high potential gains at the risk of producing a counter loss in a success rate. Usually it's the other way around, where the Asian culture takes the most consistent road and produce consistency iteratively going upward, while the Western culture takes risks, like go big or go home kind of thing, or all in. If you're gonna attempt, make sure it's a home run kind of thing, right? It's weird, but it's one of those things that is ever present when I see kids, and stories like this happens all the time to like in the different lenses when I see storytelling about this type of thing too.
共通して言えることがある。それは彼らが踊る機会になってしまっているということ。
踊る機会。
1ミリのズレもない計算され尽くしたダンス。人はその精密な動きに最初は驚き。
Yeah, she's more raised like your classical technician. She can be more considered like a real world thing would be a prodigy that performs with precision, great perfection. But the way that translating, like the message here in Christina, is more of a Western spin on it, on how like passion, sloppiness, like personality over supersedes precision, calculation, perfection, like perfection in terms of imitation. Generally speaking, the Asian values tend to be on the other side, the one that deals with calculated precision, iteration, consistency, as opposed to ad-libbing and improvisational and whatnot. But in this case, they're kind of flipping the script here, which is interesting. And it's hard to tell if this guy is supposed to be foreign, because his name is Christina. So there is a chance that this guy is supposed to be representing the Westernized values, which is emphasizing passion and like a bit of wiggle room, flexibility, and whatnot, as opposed to cold, calculated perfection, right? Um, when I used to play the violin. I used to be a violinist, and you can definitely see the separation between that, between the cold, calculated prodigy that can perfectly play a piece to the accentuated personality who was being creative, right? So they're two sides of a non-complementary coin that takes away from each other, but they are both celebrated in our days today. The ability to calculatedly perfectly, FC and OSU map, right? To unfortunately, Osu doesn't support the other one where you be ad-libbing and stuff. But when it comes to music, dance, expression, art, Westerns tend to favor more of a uniqueness instead of a reproduction. But often Eastern values elevate the rigors of repeating stuff, consistent iteration, kind of like how the gaming industry separates itself too. So, but RGG, I still think RGG is a great mix of both. Anyways, I'm pretty sure this guy's supposed to be a foreigner, so he's closer to the Western style. And Akari would not understand that. Akari would value the things that typically the Asian culture would appreciate, which is very technically complex, very technically precise, and consistent execution. Practice makes perfect. Haruka just happens to be the lucky person who resonates with Christina. And in this situation, if I was an adult, right? Maybe Akari is adult, I would say Christina is a better match for Haruka. But there are probably other people out there who are a better match for you. If you try to get Christina, it would be a dissonance. The two of you would be fighting against yourself. Christina would be training you to be something you're not. And Christina, as a professional, understands that. So he only picks the ones that you're interested in because it would be a waste of both of their times. However, it would be difficult for a 16-year-old to appreciate, which is written really well. She's more emotional than talking to someone who's in the business. Just a slight digression, but still relevant.
それは本当に人を引きつけるものじゃない。本物のダンサーというのは自分の動きで感情を表現し、見る者を感動させるものなの。それがフロントに立てる人間と生涯バックで踊り続ける人間の差。今のあなたとはるかの差よ。
そんな。
人に認めてもらおうとして踊ってもダメ。もっと心から楽しく踊りなさい。あかり。
You can still dance from the heart and be a precise, precision, technical dancer, but, they're not mutually exclusive.
もう私ダンスなんかしない。
あかり。
追いかけてはダメ、はるか。今のあの子は自分で気づくしかないの。辛いけど、それがあの子のためよ。
でも、あかりは間違ってないと思います。あかりは私にダンスが楽しいことだってことを教えてくれた大事な友達なんです。
そう。なら今度はあなたが教えてあげなさい。友達というのはそうやって支え合い、互いに成長していける関係のことを言うんでしょ。